Hey everybody, this is Sinclair here, and welcome back to Redstone for Beginners. Now, if you didn't catch my first episode, that one's covering very bare bones basics. It's going over switches, buttons, wooden and stone pressure plates. The very minimum that you need to use redstone. What I'm going to talk about now is let me fix the day. What I'm going to talk about now initially is first. Remember how I talked about how redstone has a power level, and it starts at 15 and ends up at 1 before it no longer can push power anymore. So this is an example of that. Now you see here the redstone lamp is not powered even though it is wired up. Now what we can do here is use a redstone repeater. Now what you do with that is you put it in line with your redstone wiring, and ba-ba-bam! It starts it right back up, coming out at power level 15 to go wherever you need it. Now, the reason this is important is you will probably use more redstone repeaters in later, more complicated builds than almost redstone wire itself. It's just, they're everywhere. And I'll even give you an example of why. Here, let's just... Now, you'll notice... When redstone is put together, like right next to each other, it all just connects, right? But what you can do with a repeater is it completely isolates it. You see now how these aren't connected to the sides anymore. So you end up doing this when you have a lot of stuff right next to each other. This is especially popular with piston work. So that you can make sure that it is getting power to the right side, because a lot of this stuff is very particular about where and how much power it's getting. So that's one part of repeaters. Another part, they have a delay function. Now you can see as I right click it, the other torch here moves back. Now what this does is it adds more and more delay. So right here, it doesn't delay at all, it just spits it right back. But if I do that, you might not notice it on this lowest setting, but watch. Very, very, very subtle. Let me try it on the next one. Little easier to see it that time. And let me go ahead and do the greatest delay for a single repeater. And you can definitely see that time that there was maybe like a half a second, maybe a quarter of a second of a delay in when the repeater went ahead and continued the power line. That is another extremely important and extremely useful thing in redstone. It's especially important when you're trying to make sure things time properly and get activated in the right order, which is once again much later becomes very, very important. So that's it for repeaters here. Let's move on to comparators. Now, comparators, I imagine, might confuse the crap out of a lot of people, and that's very understandable. This is actually an example of what we would call a transistor in circuitry. Now, what this does is it's what we call a logic gate. You can see here in its unaltered, just regular state, when you activate it, it kind of acts like a repeater. It just continues the power, lets it do its thing. However, it has two other functions. The first of which is called comparison mode. Now that's what this is right here. That other one where you can see the redstone torch is lit up, that's a different mode. I'll talk about that next. But in compare mode, this is where that power level thing I was talking about earlier becomes very, very important. So, what a comparator does in comparison mode is it receives signal from, this is the back, right? You kind of have an arrow pointing in the direction it is oriented. So it receives signal from the back here. Now it measures that signal, right? Okay, so that's the first part to consider. This is where the initial power is coming from. That's what the comparator is considering. Then you have these side inputs here. These are what it's going to compare power levels with. Now, what's actually happening in comparison mode, as you can see here, I turn that on, comes at power level 15, 14, hits the comparator and moves on. Now, if I activate this one here, it goes 15, 14, and hits the comparator. There's no difference in the power level that's coming to the comparator, right? That makes sense. So, what I do in this case, I turn on this switch is a little farther away, so it goes 15, 14, 13, 12. The power level coming to the comparator from its input back here is a little bit lower. Now, if I activate this switch here, you can see the power is no longer coming out of the output. That is because the power coming out of this switch is greater than the power coming out, I'm sorry, I should say, the power coming to the comparator from this side is greater than the power coming to it from this side. That is the key idea in comparators. Now, I'll go ahead and mention that it will consider both sides. If you do that, like, you don't have to just do 3 sides. You can do, another one. And, it's just making an even bigger comparison. But anyway, that's not important for what we're doing here. Oh, no. Whatever. That can be there. Holes don't matter. This is redstone, baby. So, that's comparison mode. Now, if we come over here, this one's a little different. This is subtraction mode. Now, much like the other mode, if nothing is happening, if no other power is coming to it, it just spits power out like normal. That's just what it does. However, if you give it greater power than it is receiving from behind, it no longer outputs any power at all. That is because what it is doing here is it is subtracting the power level that's coming to it from the sides from the power level that is coming to it from that rear input. Once again, it might be a little confusing right now, but what this is doing is it's telling you that later on, when you have this web of redstone wire running around, you'll be able to hit it with power from different directions, and it's essentially another type of switch that you control with power rather than just physical actions. It's kind of a way of automating your process. This is actually, I kind of forgot about this. Another thing, here, let me go ahead and build it real quick. All right, now this right here, this is an example of something really cool that you can do with kind of a combination of what I was talking about a minute ago with comparators and repeaters combined. So this right here, if you don't know, this is a dispenser. Essentially what it does is if you just power it from the back, it'll fire out, whatever's in front of it. But what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of kind of a nifty, it's almost short-circuiting what's happening here. So, you can see it is giving an intermittent signal, which allows us to set up an auto-firing turret. Which is really friggin' cool, especially if you're doing PvP, or, if you've got some kind of mob trap set up in survival mode, and you just need a way to take care of something that's chasing you. You flip a switch, and the hallway becomes death. So, anyway, I think that will be good for now. Thank you again for watching. If you need something in particular laid out, please put it down in the comments. If you have a particular build that you would like to see me put together and explain, put it in the comments. I'm happy to do it. This is why I'm here, to make redstone a little bit easier for you. So anyway, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, I am Bread, Octodad, a couple others, go ahead and click on the annotations and like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think. So as always, this has been Sinclair, and until next time, take care and be well, everybody.